With the grades training, this is going to assume that you have at least some modest amount of experience with D2L. You don't have to, but there are some scenarios where if you don't understand what I'm referring to, let me know and I'll expand upon what I'm talking about. But we're going to go straight into, this is my training class. I'm going to go straight to my grades. When you go to your grade book and you have no grades, it will default to the setup wizard. The setup wizard is basically a bunch of choices you can make about how to set up your grade book in your class. And so I'm going to actually not go through any of these. I'm going to actually just go hit start and go straight through it. These are the scenarios that we're going to be addressing in the setup wizard. So the very first question you have to determine, if you don't already know, is, are you using a point system or a weighted system? We're ignoring formula because that's too complicated. Pretty much everybody either uses weighted or points or some kind of variation thereupon. I'm going to start out with a point system. We can demonstrate a weighted system later. But basically, point system is you have X number of points possible in the class, and each grade item adds to that possible points. Whereas with the weighted system, you usually have like categories of types of assessment activities that have a certain percentage assigned to them for the total value in the course. So for instance, this example being provided by the system is saying 80% of the grade in the class is the final exam, which seems really high to me, but and 20% of it is assignments. And if there are only 2 assignments, then they would each be 50% of this 20%. But yeah, we're going to start with a points system. So I'm just going to go ahead and proceed. And so for step 2, you have the option between the calculated final grade and the adjusted final grade. The difference between these two is that the calculated final grade is the hard math. It's the final grade that a student would achieve if there's no modification to the numbers. It's just you got 10 out of 10 on this item, you got 5 out of 10 on this item. So out of those 20 total possible points, you got 15. The adjusted final grade is an opportunity to modify your grades before releasing them to students. I don't recommend the adjusted final grade because you can always switch this setting at the end of the term when you do need to make an adjustment to your final grades, if that is needed. But if you never need it, then you just never switch to it and you just keep it on the calculated final grades. That also being said, you have at the end of the term, you still have to take the grades that you have in D2L and manually enter A's, B's, and C's, and so on and so forth for your class in your final grade section of MyPCC BandWeb. And so therefore, you're going to be entering a final grade in another system. So you're going to have to be aware of that. So you may be able to make your change there instead of here, but it is good to have a record of what your final grades are showing in D2L. So I recommend keeping calculated final grade as the default. The other note about this is the ability to release final grades during the middle of the term so that students know what they're currently getting. Is dependent upon calculated final grade being chosen. So something that a lot of students really like is having their current final grade showing, and you can't do that with adjusted final grade. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. And I actually do recommend clicking automatically release final grade. Basically what this does is this should automatically release the final grade to the students immediately. What that means is if they turn in the first assignment and they get a 10 out of 10, we're going to show them that's the grade that they have in the class now. But there is another option that can affect that, which is on the next page. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue and continue with that explanation. So you have this option here, ungraded items, and it's what do you want to do with them? Do you drop ungraded items or do you treat them as 0? Basically, the difference between these two options is that the drop ungraded item says that anything you haven't turned in yet, anything that hasn't been marked as 0 yet, will not count against you in the current calculation of the final grade. So if you turn in the first assignment and you get 10 out of 10 on that, it means you have 100% in the class. You have an A in the class right now. If you switch to treat ungraded items as 0, then it means you have 10 out of 100 possible points in the class, and so you only have a 10% in the class, and it looks like you have an F. It looks like you've only done 10% of the work, which would be factually accurate, but it may be disconcerting to students to see that. So I do generally recommend drop ungraded items rather than treat ungraded items as 0 for that purpose. But some instructors do like students to be able to see the long-term projection of their grades build up from 0 to 100% possible, rather than drop ungraded items, which would show you, hey, you've got 100% now, and the rest is yours to lose rather than to gain, so to speak. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh yes, caveats for drop ungraded items. You do need to manually enter zeros for people who don't turn in assignments. So if somebody skips an assignment and just doesn't do it, you need to go back in after the fact and put a 0 in to make sure that that counts against them in the final grade, which is really difficult not to do, because when you're looking at your grades, you'll see that there are dashes instead of zeros for any assignment that somebody didn't turn in. And so you can just go in and add a 0 for those. Automatically keep final grade updated. Obviously, no reason not to do that. So I just say check this third option, and we're going to continue. So there's a default grade scheme, which is the percentage grade scheme. We have no other option, so we're just going to go with this one. But I want to let you know that there is the ability to create custom grade schemes. So under the schemes area, the schemes tab of the grades area, you can make your own custom schemes. The default percentage is what we're all used to. It's the 90% and above is an A, 80% and above is a B. 70% and above is a C. If you have a different setup than that, that you need to use, either for your entire grade book in your class or for individual items, individual activities that might be graded differently, you can choose other options, but you'll have to manually create those in the schemes. If you need help with that, it's not something I'll probably be able to demonstrate today, but definitely let us know and we can demonstrate that for you. I have some, for instance, art instructors who don't judge their students' artwork based on A's, B's, and C's, but rather on the criteria of, did they understand the lesson and did they turn it in on time? And did they understand the lesson, but they didn't turn it on time? They sort of understood the lesson, but they turned it in on time. That sort of thing, where it's not like a subjective, like you get an A because you draw well sort of scenario. So you can create those custom schemes if you need to. We have some PSU instructors who really like A pluses and B minuses and all the options in between. So you could technically create a grade scheme like that, which I don't really find that necessary, because when you turn in your grades for your class at the end of the term, you can only enter an A or a B or a C for the final grade. So knowing whether they got an A minus or a B plus is kind of irrelevant in the system in the end. So I'm going to hit continue, and we're going to go ahead, and what this says is number of decimal places to display. It means that if somebody's grade, whether on an individual grade item or on their final grade, has decimal places, it will display up to 2 of them. So if they get a 93.47, they'll see the 0.47. This is a managing view, so this is actually what you would see. And if we hit continue, it's actually going to have on the next option to show the students the same. And I would recommend always keep this number the same as the one that you chose in the previous page. If there is no decimal display, it won't display a decimal, but it'll only display up to 2. So you don't have like somebody who gets a 2/3 of the credit in the class getting a 66.6 repeating. You're only going to see 66.66. The student view specifically, you're allowing them to see the points grade, which is you got a 10 out of 10 on that. You got 100 out of 100 possible points in the class. The grade scheme symbol is the actual letter. So you got an A, you got a B, you got a C. And the grade scheme color is a color scheme system that cool colors in the background of a grade indicate that it's a higher grade, and warmer colors means a lower grade. And I'll actually show you what this looks like later on, but it'll be like a blue color will indicate that the person got an A green is a B, yellow is a C, orange is a D, and red is an F. But it's actually a really great system for you as an instructor to see that, because it means that you can at a glance know exactly how well people are doing in your class, because you can recognize color faster than you can letters and numbers. So it really helps. I've never seen a need to change this. Number of characters display for text items 15. It just means if you have a really, really long text title for a grade item, it may shorten it if it's more than 15 characters, but that's not usually an issue. Display final grade calculation to users. This one I always check. I recommend it because basically this should match what exists in your syllabus. Because your syllabus should tell your students what the breakdown of their final grade is. This is, hey, there are 3 assignments worth 30 points and there's 5 discussions worth 10 points each, that sort of thing. That's what this would show to users in the grades area. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. This is step 6 of 7. Step 7 is actually just a reminder of the options that you've chosen. So that's all of it, all that is. And then I'm going to hit finish. And so once you've finished the setup wizard, then it gives you some options. Hey, what do you want to do? If you go to enter grades, it's going to show you a list of your students. So everybody in this are instructors with the exception of my account, which is a student account. But you will notice that you will show up in your own gradebook. You can use your account as sort of a dummy account to give yourself grades, so that you can see if your gradebook is adding up as you expect it to. But you'll notice I have nothing in here as far as grades are concerned, with the exception of the final calculated grade and the final adjusted grade over here on the side. This is the default. If you go to manage grades, which is the place where, as it sounds, you would manage what your grade book looks like, you'll see also again that you just have the calculated grade and the adjusted grade. But manage grades is sort of the main area where you will build your grade book. And this is where we're going to spend some amount of time just showing you how to build your grade book, because it's kind of the main aspect of this particular training. So you have a blue new button, and you have item and category as options when you click on the blue new button. Category is a container for grades. It allows you to sort grades into similar groupings. So more often than not, this means, like, if you have assignments, then you call a category assignments. If you have a category or a group of discussions, you would call it discussions. You can also leave things out of a category if it has no category. Like if your final exam is not like any other item in your grade book, you can leave it out. You don't have to have a category for items. If you use a weighted grading system, usually categories will weigh heavily on your organization of your grade book, and I'll show you that in a minute. But for now, we're just going to pick a category and give it a name. In this case, I'm going to call it assignments, because I want to group all my assignments together. There's a short name field. You don't really need it for categories. You will need the short name field to be filled out for grade items, which are the actual assessment items themselves, but I'm going to skip short name for now. You don't really need a description. It should be pretty obvious what an assignments category is. So usually you don't need the description. You can put in a description if you want to. You can even choose to allow students to see the description. Maybe this is notes for yourself and you don't check this if you have some kind of notes you want to leave regarding how you've set it up. That would be especially beneficial if you're sharing your shell with another instructor and they need to understand how your course works, how your gradebook works. But I'm going to go through some other options here real quick. So we have under the grading options, can exceed. Can exceed means that the entire category can exceed its total possible points. So let's say you had 10 quizzes inside of a quizzes category, and all of those quizzes had at least one bonus question. So every quiz is able to get 100, or every student is able to get on any of those quizzes 105 out of 100% possible. The thing is, if the category that they're in cannot exceed, if this is not checked, then it means that those bonus points from those quizzes would never escape from the category. They would only make up for lost points. They would not add to the numerator of the final grade. So if you're comfortable with that, you certainly can do that. If you just want like quiz bonus points to make up for lost quiz points, then you could do that. But if you want them to act as an influence on the final numerator, the final grade that a student gets in the total class, then you would want to mark can exceed. A common issue with can exceed, if an instructor puts bonus items, so extra credit assignments where the entire assignment is not required but does add to the numerator of the final grade. If it's inside of a category, the category must exceed, because if it doesn't allow the category to exceed its total possible points, bonus items have no total possible points, since they don't count against students if they don't do them. So if you have bonus items inside a category, the category must exceed, or those points are not escaping that category and affecting the final grade. Obviously, exclude from final grade calculation is pretty straightforward. It means that this entire category doesn't count against the students. It's very rare for this to be used on a category. You can use it on grade items if you have like a practice test where you want to show students like what they would have gotten if this were a graded assignment, but since it's not graded against them, they just see what they got, not that it affected their final grade. And then we have distribute points across all items. This is especially useful if you have grade items that are all worth the same amount in one category. So for instance, if I want to click this, it'll say 10 points for all of my assignments. So since this is an assignments category, all of my assignments will be assigned to the assignments category, and they'll all be worth 10 points. So I don't have to manually add 10 points to every assignment grade item, because this will automatically assign that 10 points when I choose to add them to the assignments category. Now, so these options down here is if you wanted to drop one of the grade items within this category, you can do that or more. So I have some chemistry instructors I work with where they have 10 labs, but they only count 8 against the final grade. So they put a 2 in here, which means 2 of the lowest non-bonus grade items are dropped for each user. So they can do all 10, and the 2 lowest scores will be dropped, or they can just do 8 and none will be dropped, because the 2 that they didn't do will be zeros, and those will automatically be dropped. I don't actually want to drop anything, so I'm going to put this back to 0. I've never seen anyone drop the highest graded ones, so I've never seen anybody actually use this field. And I'm going to skip the display options, not really important here. And then the other option is to go to restrictions, and I don't actually recommend this. So under restrictions, you can actually choose to hide a category from students. You can actually choose which dates the category is viewable. This is only the grade items and the grade categories themselves. So I generally never recommend using any kind of restriction, because students should be able to see what grade items exist in the class. The only scenario that I've ever seen this used for a good reason was if you had a grade calculation that you were doing in the background for your own purposes that the students don't need to see. But more often than not, you never want to stop students from being able to see their grade items. So I'm just going to hit save and close, and that is going to create our grade category. So that's what this is. It is not a grade assignment. I cannot assign a grade to this category for a student, because its grading for students will be determined by the points they get on the assignments within the category, not the category itself. So that's the next step. I'm going to go to new and choose item now, because I want to fill up that category with grade items. This is going to get daunting, because you're like, oh crap, which one do I use? You always want to use numeric almost every time. You can use pass fail if you need to, but more often than not, numeric is going to be the one that you choose just about every time. And that just means that it's a grade that's going to be out of a total possible points. So we're going to choose numeric, and I'm going to say assignment 1 because I want to start at the beginning. And this is where a short name is important. I'm going to call it assign 1 instead of the full assignment 1. And so what you're looking for with a short name is it needs to be meaningful to you. It's not going to be seen by anyone, so you don't have to worry about it being meaningful to the students. If you wanted, if you know that you know what it's talking about, you can even call it A1. And the reason for that, I'm actually going to pull it up in another browser tab, is that, let's let's go over here. When you're adding grade columns to this area, the enter grades area, you're going to have them all start to fill up this area, and it's going to scroll to the right further and further. And so the longer the names are, like right here, if this were really long, it would stretch out the column even more and make you have to scroll more. So that's why you want a short name, so that it's not going to be dependent on the width of the name up here, but it'll only be dependent on the width of the score that they achieve. So you're just kind of saving yourself a headache having to scroll further if you just put in a short name that you can recognize. I've already created my category, so I'm going to choose assignments. If you didn't already have a category, you could actually click this and it would give you the previous menu that we just saw for creating a new category. So I'm going to actually choose the pre-existing one. I don't need a description. I'm going to skip that. This is what I was talking about earlier. I told the category that anything inside of it needed to be 10 points. And so that's what this represents. I can't change this as grayed out because it's saying everything that I have assigned within this category gets 10 points as its total possible points. An item can exceed its total possible points. So just like the category can, you can do that with the item itself. Let's see. Bonus, so this is what I mentioned earlier. This is extra credit. So bonus means that this entire grade item can not count against a student if they do the assignment, or if they don't do the assignment, but it will add to the numerator of their final grade if they do this assignment. But once again, it's inside of a category. So if I did choose to make this an extra credit item, a bonus item, I would need the category to be able to exceed its total possible points, because otherwise that would only make up for lost points inside the category itself. And again,
I've got a question.
Sure.
So you're talking about the brief name and the short name, and why we want to keep that short because it'll show on our rating sheet, I guess. What name, where will the student see a name for this assignment?
So in the grade book, they will see, in their version of the grades, they will see assignment 1, and they'll see it in a vertical listing. So they do not see a list like this that scrolls to the right. They see one that goes vertically, and it gives them the full name. So that's why the short name is only seen by the instructor. And I'll actually show you this when we get more grades in the grade book. But basically, you're seeing it on this horizontally scrolling page, and they're going to see it on a vertical one. And I'll show you what the student view looks like as well once we fill out the grade book a little bit more.
So do we want to keep the short name short, or the
yes.
long? So the,
no,
but
the long
name
we
can
the long
have
name can
long.
be you can call it Shakespeare essay. It can be really long if you want it to. The short name just needs to be short, and the short name is only seen by you, so you don't have to worry about the students recognizing what A1 means, as long as you know what A1 means. And if you think you're going to get confused by A1, go ahead and call it like assign 1 or something. But you just want to make sure it's as short as you can make it while still being meaningful to you. Was there any other questions about that? Okay, I guess not.
Can you give an example with the bonus point? Because it's like if it is a 10-point quiz and they get 11 out of 10, we should mark can exceed.
Yes. So if you have like 11 points that you want to give them, you have to choose can exceed, because otherwise if it can't exceed, then you will only ever be able to assign 10 points to it as the total possible points.
Right. Yeah. You'll get the message that there is a mistake and your grade is more than 10. Well,
yeah. So actually, its current possible points is 10. And so when you go to grade that student and you put in 11, it'll say, there's an error here. You can only put up to 10 points. Yeah, so you do want to make sure that you click can exceed if you want them to be able to get more than the total possible points.
And now how the bonus assignment work? Like if you click on bonus, how?
Yeah, so bonus means that the entire assignment is extra credit. It means it doesn't count against them if they don't do it, but it does add to the numerator of their final grade if they do it. So it gives them 10 extra points, but if they don't do it, it won't take 10 points away from them.
Oh, okay. So, for example, like adding the webwork point, because I know when I link the webwork there, The way the web work is calculated is, like you said, the ungraded item is 0. So you really don't want your student to be stressed out with those kind of points. And it's still automatically connected to the grades. So that item could be put as a bonus, or actually no, because.
So bonus, you only want to mark bonus for extra credit that will not count against them if they don't do it. So if you want them to do it, you don't want to mark it as bonus. Bonus is strictly for extra credit that they're just
I see.
doing an extra assignment.
So the web work that you don't want, you want them to see, but you still don't want to calculate it. So that would be something that is.
Yeah, so that might be something that you use exclude from final grade calculation, and so yeah, you could have them see if you want to enter those grades in there, but like web work is outside of D2L, so yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So once again, default grade scheme, if I had a custom one, I could choose that if I wanted to. If I used rubrics tool, which is a little complicated, so I'm not going to go into it, but we do have rubrics tools in D2L. You can build your rubrics and assign them. They can be quite nifty if you do have a rubric that you really like and want to use. Not every instructor's rubric concept works in D2L. It's going to be limited to certain options. So you can use it if it works for you. If you don't, then you may just have to do your outside of D2L calculations on a rubric. The nice thing though about the rubric is that you can show it to students after it's filled out if you do use the D2L rubric. So you can actually have them see which boxes they made or lost points in. Display options, I don't usually mess with these, but you can override and change what people see. Managing view is your view. The student view is right here. I almost never recommend using display class average to users as display grade distribution to users. Students get really concerned about the fact that they're the one with the 60% on the quiz, and they're upset that everybody else seemed to do so much better than them. So it's sort of unnecessary anxiety to show students the class average or the grade distribution, because that will upset a lot of people about how well or how poorly they're doing. Some people are or might get a little arrogant about how high they are in the class. Once again, restrictions, you can use restrictions. I don't recommend it. Don't restrict your students from being able to see a grade item unless there's a definitive purpose for doing so. So if it is something that doesn't count against them and you just want to see a calculation of some sort, then you can hide that. But otherwise, if it's a grade that actually applies to their final grade, then they should be able to see that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save and close. What I will note is there is a save and new button, which if you want to build a bunch of similar grade assignment or grade items all at the same time, you can hit save and new. And what that will do is that will take me back to choosing the numeric grade type. Actually, I'll just demonstrate that now. So if I click on that, it'll take me back here. And so I can just click on this. It saves me one click, basically, where I can go in and I can real quick throw in assignment 2. And I'll just say A2 and throw it in assignments. So automatically gets that 10 points, and that's all I need to do and save and close. So now I have 2 different assignments underneath the assignments category. So you'll notice that it is offset here, indicating that it's under this category. And just for bonus effect, I'll put in a discussions category. I don't need a short name. I really don't need anything else in here. If I wanted to, I can distribute points. Let's say discussions are worth 20, and we'll say save and close. And so we have a discussions category, but it doesn't have any grade items in it. Whereas we have assignment 1 and assignment 2, they are numeric type and they're worth 10 points each. So everything that gets assigned under the category will be 10 points each. And for this one, they will be 20 if I want to create a discussions grade book item. So we'll call it discussion 1, call it D1, and we'll call it discussions. And that's really all I need. I'm going to hit save and close. And there we go. So that's automatically 20 points because I put that in that category. And so this is basically how you would fill out your grade book. I do recommend the use of categories just to keep things straight. It organizes things from the student perspective. You want to put them in chronological order. You want to make sure that the names are consistent. So if I put assignment 1 Shakespeare essay, then I want to explain what assignment 2 is. Assignment 2 is the Milton essay or whatever. Or if I don't include a name for assignment 2, then I probably shouldn't put the name Shakespeare essay in assignment 1. You want your naming scheme to be consistent. You want everything to be in order. So assignment 1 should precede assignment 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, that sort of thing, just to make it clear. You can reorder things. So if you decide that you want to switch out the order that something's in, for instance, if I want my discussions to go up higher than my assignments, then I can choose 1 for this. It automatically moves this to 2. If I had things out of order, if maybe this was assignment 2 and this was assignment 1, I could swap them out if I wanted to by clicking this. So you can change the order of things. So you don't have to worry about entering them necessarily in order. I recommend that just for sanity's sake, but you can enter them in a different order and then rearrange them afterwards. You just want to make sure you do that before it is seen by students, just so they have confidence in your ability to be well organized and communicate clearly. So essentially that is the creation of the gradebook. And I'm going to pause in case anybody has any questions about building gradebooks.
So I think the restriction up here, we don't use it, but we do use the restriction for the assignments.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine to use on an assessment tool. I'm not saying don't use restrictions on anything. I'm just saying on grade
only
items.
On this one.
Yeah, there's usually no reason not to show a student what grades they could get, because this is already listed in your syllabus. This should already be visible to them. So yeah, it's just letting them know in advance easily. And I'll show you what the student perspective is. And this is something that you can do in your own classes. Click on your name in the top right-hand corner. You may see view as instructor if you've never done this before. Mine's defaulting to view as student, but you can hit change and choose from different options. You won't see all of these options because I'm in my admin account, but one of them will be view as student. And so you can click on the one that says view as student. And this will allow me to look at my grade book from the student perspective. So this is what I was talking about. The students see the full name of the assignment, so that you don't have to worry about them seeing the short name A1. They won't see that. They won't need to worry about what that is. And so it's a vertical listing. You get to see the full names of all the assignments. You get to see the percentage grade and the points grade. So yeah, so that's what the student perspective looks like. Whereas if I click this X to go back to my instructor view, in the enter grade screen, you'll see A1, A2. And so this is what I was talking about, the short name. So this could be assignment 1, and it would drag out the width of this column. Obviously, even A1 with this drop-down arrow is sort of the minimal width that you can get for this column. So the numbers will never exceed the width of the column and stretch it out. It's always the name that causes that issue. And so if
Can you explain again how you view as a student?
Yes. You click on your name in the top right-hand corner. It'll say view as student, or it'll say view as instructor. If it says view as instructor or something else, you hit change, and you'll see a list of the other options that you have, which will not be as numerous as the ones that I have here. And then you would just click on student, and that will allow you to see the student perspective.
Okay, yeah, I'm not. What I'm seeing is profile, notifications, account settings, progress.
So you're not seeing this at all in the top of your screen when you click on your name. You may have a student account in the overall institution, so it may not be allowing you to do that. Can you send me an email?
Yeah.
Let me move this up.
Yeah, I have a PCC student account as well.
Yeah, so let me expand this. So yeah, send me an email at this email address, michael.moss1@pcc.edu, and just let me know that that's happening to you, and I can go into the system and fix that. So anyway, yeah, so from the instructor view, when you click on grades, after you've built your grade book, you're going to see all these columns start filling out and scroll horizontally. I don't have a lot of them. I don't want to keep building too much because that'll be time consuming, but we're going to pretend that we have a full gradebook here. Now, real quick, I want to switch over to a weighted system to show you what that looks like. So you'll be confused because I just went through that really quickly. The settings icon over here, not this gear icon up here, but this one right here. When you're in the gradebook, you'll see this blue one over here. This is where you change all the options that you chose when you were going through decision making in the gradebook, or I'm sorry, the setup wizard. So when you were going through the setup wizard, all the options that you made decisions with are going to be over here. They may be phrased differently slightly, so you'll want to kind of go through them and see if they are what you're referring to. So for instance, the weighted and points is where we set this up. I'm going to choose weighted. If I wanted to switch to the adjusted calculated, or the adjusted final grade from the calculated, I could choose that. If I want to switch to treating ungraded items as 0, I could do that, but I'm only going to change the weighted system here. So I'm going to say yes, and they say, are you sure? And there, are you really sure? And yes. And so now I can go back to my grade book. And what you'll notice immediately is that the system gives you a warning when you have a weighted grading system. It wants everything to be worth 100% in the class, and it wants every category to have 100% total points in those categories. So it'll warn you if it's not, which is great, because if this isn't adding up, then your gradebook will not add up properly. So what we can do here, we see that the weight for discussions is 10 and the weight for assignments is 10. I can actually change that. So in this case, I'm going to say that the weight for each of these categories is 50, because I'm just going to do a really simple one. But you can break it down however you want. It can be 30, 30, and 40, depending on how many categories you have. This is a variation on the Can Exceed button when you're in a weighted system. So you'll notice the menu will look slightly different when you're creating or editing a grade category or grade item in a weighted system, because obviously some of the scenarios are going to be different with them. Manually assign weight to items in the category. What that means is that you can manually choose what weight each item within the category has. The categories have 100% possible within them, and then that is translated mathematically into whatever their weight is in the total possible points. So anything in the class, like if I only had 2 items within the category, then they would each be worth 50% of the total possible points within the category, but then they would actually be worth 25% of the total possible points, because that would be half of the 50% that the total category has in the final calculated grade. That's always the fun thing to get into the math discussion with some people. It can be confusing when you get really weird percentages you have to talk about. You can distribute weight by points across all items. So what that means is if the whole category is worth 100 points, then you could give everything 10 points and have 10 items. 10 times 10 is 100 if you wanted to do it that way. But that also allows you to both manually assign and, or actually with the manually assign, it allows you to have grade items that within the category that have different total possible points. So you could have a discussion that is 20 possible points and one that's 10. But if you distribute weight evenly across items, you're going to get everything worth the same. So everything will be worth like 10% if there are 10 items within a category, because that will divide it up evenly amongst all of them. So I'm actually going to choose this. I'm not going to drop any grade items for bonus or anything like that, or for non-bonus items. And I'm just going to go ahead and save this. And what you're going to see is a change where one of those messages went away, where it previously said that my discussions were only worth 10 instead of 100%. Well, now it's not. That message has gone away because I fixed that issue. So 50% of the weight in the class and 10% of the weight in the class, which adds up to the 60 that it's warning me is not 100. So now I want to go into my assignments category, and I'm going to adjust that to be 50 as well. And I'm going to tell it to also distribute weight evenly across all items. What you will notice now is that there's max points, and these are the number of points that you enter when you're grading the assignment itself. So when I go in to grade my discussion 1, my students will have 20 possible points for that discussion. And so let's say if I want them to post an initial post and then respond to 2 other people, I'm going to divide that up evenly. So we'll say that 8 points goes to the first post that they make, responding to the prompt for the discussion, and then 6 total each for the other 2, which would add up to 12, which 12 plus 8 would be 20. So the total possible points could be broken down however you want. But when the system takes that 20 possible points, let's say they get the full 20% possible points for that discussion item, it's going to translate it into being 100% of the possible weight within this category, because that's what it currently is. It'd be lower if I had other grade items within the discussions category, but since it's the only thing, it's taking up 100% of the possible weight. And so all 50%, which is basically 100% of this 50%, would be whatever grade they got out of 20 here. So with the assignments, I have 2 assignments, so they're 50% of the total possible points within the category, and the category itself is 50 possible or percentage points within the final grade. So this 10 would translate into 50% of the total possible points within the category, or 25% in the total class, because half of 50 is 25. And obviously, these numbers would get smaller if you had more items within the category. So that's what happens when you evenly distribute the points across multiple items or inside a category in a weighted system. But what you'll notice now is my error messages have gone away. It's telling me everything's fine. I have 50% here and I have 50% here. So I have 100% total possible points in my class with a weighted system, and 100% of this category is covered by this one grade item, and 50% is covered by these 2, which adds up to 100.
So can you assign different weights within the category so that assignment 1 could be?
You can, yeah. So I have it currently distributing weight evenly amongst all items, but I can manually assign the weight. And so if I switch to that, then I can go in and say, I want assignment 1 to be 25, and I want assignment 2 to be 75. And so as long as they add up here to 100% within the category, then that's fine. And it's up to you how you distribute those. But notice the max points are still not changed. I didn't change those. So when I grade it, I grade this one out of 10 and I grade this one out of 10, but that 10 translates to 25% of the category that it's in, and this 10 translates to 75% of the category that it's in.
And on weighted, can you have them go above, like you did for the total amounts? Like,
yeah, so you can still click can exceed. So if you want 11 out of 10 points or 12 out of 10 points, you can do that as long as you have can exceed. But then again, once again, if you choose can exceed for that one, then you also want to choose can exceed for the category as well to make sure that those bonus points can escape. So if they get 110% within the category, that category needs that setting to allow it to exceed its weight so that it can actually escape that and affect the total possible points in the class.
And how does that work mathematically? Does that mean that the total grade will be 101%, or that if you get, say, 51% on something with 50-50, that then the other one goes down?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the weight of the category itself. So if the category is 50% of the weight, if you got like 100, and I think it would be 102% would calculate to 51%. So then if you got 102% out of 100% possible within the category, this weight would be 52% out of 50%. And so then if they got the other 50%, then they could theoretically have 102 out of 100% possible in the class. So it's going to do a calculation between what's possible within the category and then translate that into whatever the weight of the category it's in. So if you had a category that was only 10%, it would be a much smaller percentage if it exceeded its weight, because it would only be able to do proportionate to the weight of the category. So if you have a smaller, like 10% category, it would only do like 11% instead of 52%. Let's see what else we have. So I'm going to actually show you what it looks like to enter grades, and we're going to use some of these people as sort of dummy students to enter the grades for them. It's important if you're using activities in D2L like discussions, assignments, and quizzes, you want to link them to gradebook items. So you'll notice there's nothing in this association column here. it means I haven't tied it to any of these activities. So if I have, for instance, an assignment 1, I can go into assignment 1 and edit it, and I can choose my grade item. So I have an assignment 1 to connect it to, and I hit save and close. And now when I go back to the gradebook, it's going to indicate that those are associated. So you'll notice there's now an association in the association column. If I click on that little arrow, it'll tell me it's assignment 1. Now, they do match in name, so it's kind of confusing as to what it's referring to, but this name right here is the name of the assignment in the assignments tool that I went to, and this is the name of the grade item. So they should typically match, so it's clear and straightforward to the student what you're referring to. So you have assignment 1 is matched to the assignment 1 grading item. So that makes sense. Anything else?
Can you walk through that one more time?
Sure. So I can do a discussion this time. So every tool is going to have its own place for choosing the grade items. So I'm going to edit this discussion topic. The discussions, the assessment is chosen in the assessment tool or tab. So I can choose my grade item. I'm going to say this is discussion 1, and I'll set it out of 20 points or something. And so when I choose that with this drop-down menu, I am choosing it to link it to the grade item, so that when I grade my discussion, the grade will automatically get thrown over into the gradebook. Or when I go to my assignment and I grade the assignment, so if I were to actually click on in here, and if I expanded it, nobody's turned it in yet, obviously, so I'm going to say people who haven't turned it in. So if I wanted to enter grade for myself as a student, I can throw this in here and say, hey, you got a 10, good job. When I enter this, when I hit publish, this grade that I just entered will actually show up in the gradebook now because I associated it. So if I go back to grades, you'll notice now that my A1 assignment 1 has that point in there.
Thanks. And you inserted the number of points in the assignment place rather than the grades.
Correct.
Does that mean you could, if you change one in one place, then it automatically changes in the other place?
Yes, they are linked. And so the difference that I recommend is you want to use the tool if you're using the tool. So if you have an assignment like this where students are turning in their assignments in here, you want to use this tool to grade them. So you want to click on it, find your students. Of course, there is nobody who's turned this in, so I'll have to switch it again to show everybody, and assess them from here, and that will kick the grade over into the gradebook. However, if you're doing assignments that you can't tie to any of these because they're outside of those tools, you can manually grade them. And there's 2 ways of doing that. You can go to the spreadsheet view right here, and you can just manually enter just like a spreadsheet. And we can say this person got 9, this person got 8, this person got 7, this person got 6. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. And it's like, are you sure? Sure. We're very sure. And then you want to switch back to the standard view. And so what you're seeing now, it's very faint, unfortunately, but if you can kind of see, maybe my screen's just too bright for me, but there's a reddish, an orangish, or I mean yellowish here. I guess that would be the D, which would be orangish. But there's a blue background here. There's a green background here. So these are A's. This is a B. This is a C, and this is a D. So yeah, that's how the grade scheme color works. But if you want to manually enter grades, that's a really easy way to do it. Another way to do it is actually to click on the arrow next to the assignment and choose enter grades. This one I actually prefer if you're going to be doing it from the gradebook because it will give you a list of all your students, so you're focused on it, whereas the spreadsheet view on the total grade is only really beneficial if you're entering multiple grade items at the same time. But if you're only doing one at a time, this is sort of great for focusing on one. So I can just go in here and go down the line and enter grades. But this also will give you the option to add text feedback if you want to. I'm going to save that. So yeah, so that would be the way that you would grade it. Let me see, is there anything else? So let me show you what the student view looks like now that we've entered. Oh, you know what? I need to impersonate myself because I'm using a different account. So let's see. So you're not able to do this. This is my admin privileges that I'm using, but I can impersonate my dummy student account that I have in here. And so now I'm able to see my current total grade is already released. And so I have 100%. That's only because I chose to drop any grade item that I haven't graded yet, that I haven't turned in yet. So out of this one assignment that I got 100% on, I have 100% in the class. Once more of these are added, once I turn this in and get graded for it as a student, then this will change. And so if I don't get 100% on my discussion, it's going to decrease the amount of my grade percentage and the weight achieved. So let's see if there's anything else. Are there any other questions? I pretty much covered everything. Oh, if you want to delete grade items, you can go to manage grades. The thing is, you cannot delete a grade item that has an association. So if you want to delete a grade item and it has an association in the association column, you actually need to go to that tool. For instance, the discussions, if I wanted to delete that discussions grade item, I need to edit this discussion. And if you don't need the discussion itself, you can just delete it and that will delete the association. But in this case, I'm just going to switch back to choose a grade item and hit save and close. And so now when I go back to the manage grades area, it's going to show me that there is no longer an association in that column. So then what I can do is click on more actions. It's very deceptive. You think it's like a delete button where you can click this first and then say delete, but that's not actually the case. So clicking a checkbox in advance doesn't help. You actually would click on delete and it's going to take you to a delete page, which is a separate item. And you'll notice I can't click on assignment 1 because assignment 1 has that association. It doesn't let me delete it because it thinks if there's an association, maybe I'm making a mistake and I actually want to keep that. So that's why you have to go in and disassociate it first. But I can delete the discussion 1 if I want to. And it's saying, hey, you might already have grades in this. Are you sure you really want to delete this one? I'm going to say yes in this case because I do. But now you'll notice that my my discussions don't have a grade item. So I'll want to make sure I add one or delete that entire.
If you accidentally delete something, is there a way to recover it?
In the gradebook, I don't think there is. So that's why you want to make sure you're very careful about doing so. Typically, you want to set up your grade items in advance of the class even starting and making sure that they work by testing it on your own account. So I'm just going to set this up to not give me that error message. Let's see, one other option that you have, you can, what I would recommend if you want to work offline, if you don't feel like entering grades inside D2L, build your gradebook in D2L first, and then you can actually export it using this tool. And so you export it, and then you can work in the spreadsheet that you export, and then you can re-import it. But you don't want to try to import a spreadsheet that hasn't been formatted by D2L. So that's why you build your gradebook in D2L first, and then export it. And that would allow you to use it like a spreadsheet, the same way as we use the spreadsheet view here. And I think that's pretty much it for most of it. If you have any other questions, let me know. If you have anything else you want me to demonstrate in the next 5 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I had a question. This is all really new to me, and I am worried that I will be making mistakes along the way, that if the students see them before I can fix them, that it won't be good. So there is so I would actually like to hide it from the students, at least until I get it all figured out.
Yeah, certainly. That would be a legitimate use of the restrictions if you wanted to.
So it's back. Can you show me again?
Yeah, so you would go to manage grades, and if you just click on a grade item that already exists, it will give you options under the restrictions tab. And so you can even just, real simple, if you don't want it to be time-based, you can just say hide from users.
So yeah, I would like really to hide everything about grading, at least for the first few weeks till I get it all figured out.
Yeah, so in that case, you can even choose hide the entire category and everything under it, and you'd want to hide every single grade item. It's not something that you can do for the entire grade book. There's no
hide everything.
Actually, wait, maybe this is. They may have added this. No, oh yeah, so it's a bulk one, so you can make everything visible or make everything invisible.
Okay, where is that?
So it's on the manage grade screen. Under more actions. So you would click on all the things you want to hide from users. So you can do it in bulk. So you just have to select everything. It'll give you an error message, I think, if you try to hide these. Yeah, you can't hide or make visible the final grades. So you'd only want
final grades. So final grades cannot be hidden, but everything else can be hidden?
Correct. Well, because the final grade, if you don't publish the final grade, if you don't tell it to do the release the final grade early automatically during that setup wizard stage where it says automatically release final grade, if you don't have this checked, if you've never published your final grade, then it won't publish it, and then you don't have to worry about it because it won't be hidden or visible. It'll just be a blank column, but mine's already released. So that was the setting that I set up. And what I would definitely recommend, the Instructional Technology Specialists in my position are available to look at your gradebook. You're not having to go alone on this. So whether you're in the middle of building your gradebook or you think you're done and you want somebody to give you a second set of eyes on it, you can send us an email or call the faculty help desk, and we can take a look and go, oh, I see, it looks like maybe the calculation's wrong on this one, or that sort of thing. So we can go through it with you and make suggestions or fix issues. Maybe there's something that you missed.
And I'm used to just doing my grades not through this process. So I could still do that if I wanted and not use the gradebook in D2L at all.
Correct. Yeah. So you're not being forced to, you're being encouraged to. Students really love it. And it reduces the number of questions you typically get about grades because students are able to just go in there and see at any given point what their current grades are.
Okay.
Rather than having to message you and ask you.
Okay.
And honestly, there are a lot of students that, depending on the level of classes you're teaching, some of the students may not be math savvy enough to calculate their own grades. So it really helps to have a system that shows them what their current grade is.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.